Okay, everyone. Thank you for being here on this summer solstice. It is Tuesday, June 21st at 5:30 p.m., and we are calling this regular meeting of the Wake County Board of Education to order. Sorry, 5:51. I'm sure. I guess it's going to be a long day. No. Well, no. It is the longest day of the year. Sorry. We are calling this regular meeting to order. I would like to welcome those of you that are watching at home and those that are here in person to observe as the Board of Education conducts its official business. I want to take a moment to highlight Board Policy 2310, which states persons who willfully interrupt, disrupt, or cause disturbances at an official meeting may be directed to leave by the presiding officer. Members of the audience should show respect for speakers by refraining from loud comments or other disruptions. Disruptions by any person or persons of a public meeting will be subject to action in accordance with General Statute 143-318.17. We have all board members present in the boardroom. If you would all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Superintendent Moore.
Good evening. We just wrapped up one of the best times of the school year, graduation season. So I'd like to share one last word of congratulations to the class of 2022. More than 11,000 graduates crossed the stage ready for productive citizenship as well as college or career. This year's graduating class earned nearly $140 million in college scholarships to such prestigious institutions as NC State, North Carolina Central, Columbia, Duke, UNC Chapel Hill, West Point, the Naval and Air Force Academies, and many more. There are also many graduates who will be headed straight into the workforce, having gained essential job skills and experience while also completing their high school requirements. You can find stories about just a handful of these outstanding graduates on our website, wcpss.net. Graduation is the culmination of years of hard work by teachers, administrators, support staff, parents, and of course, the students themselves. Every year, the sense of joy, celebration, and hope that surround these graduation ceremonies is inspiring, reminding us all of why we do what we do. I offer my sincere best wishes for bright, successful futures to the class of 22. Congratulations to each and every one of them and to their proud families. Neil Young, a PE teacher at Brentwood Magnet Elementary School, was named National Teacher of the Year by First Tee, T-E-E, a youth development organization introducing the game of golf and its values. Coach Young is the first recipient of this award. He was surprised with the announcement last week at Brentwood, with his family, many of his students on hand to celebrate. First Tee, which uses the game of golf to reinforce character traits such as teamwork and perseverance, has been serving youth in the Triangle since 2004. Its Drive for Success after-school program has been in Wake County schools since 2017. Coach Young has led students in the Drive for Success curriculum for 5 years. He started the program at Bug Elementary and continued leading it when he moved to Brentwood. He prioritizes making sure lessons are fun and engaging to help students get the most out of the program. Jenna Gatton of First Tee wrote in her nomination, "Neil is a shining example of the type of coach First Tee wants leading children through the program, and we are fortunate to have him on our team." Brentwood will receive a $2,500 donation from First Tee, and Coach Young will be able to attend the First Tee National Conference, where he will officially be recognized. Congratulations, Coach Young. Congratulations are also in order for Tiffany Varnell of Fuller Magnet Elementary, who last week was named the WCPSS Outstanding Mathematics Teacher of the Year. She was surprised with the award by members of the WCPSS Math Department at Fuller, where she has taught for 9 years. WCPSS principals nominated math teachers from their schools, and the winner was selected by a committee of academics advancement team members. Ms. Varnell described her teaching philosophy this way: I believe that a strong classroom culture stands at the forefront of becoming a mathematician. Students must feel comfortable taking risks in front of one another, respectfully agreeing and disagreeing with one another, coaching one another, and building up one another's ideas. Varnell will now compete for the State Math Teacher of the Year Award, and she will be recognized by the North Carolina Council of Teachers of Mathematics at its state conference. Teachers like Ms. Varnell help students grow both in knowledge and confidence as they master each new skill. My thanks to her and all of our dedicated math teachers. And finally, I'd like to recognize this year's winners of 4C Fund grants. The 4C Fund was created in 2015 just for WCPSS educators. It offers grants of up to $10,000 to support projects that help students hone their collaboration, communication, creativity, and critical thinking skills. This year, individuals and teams submitted projects that demonstrate exceptional potential to help students develop the 4C skills while preparing them for college, career, and citizenship. And the awardees are Elizabeth Luna of Athens Drive Magnet High for her project, Building Change Makers Through Empathy and Community Connections. Working with community partners, students will build awareness by identifying problems as they invent new products. Aaron Steele and Alicia Beck of Willow Spring High for their project, Cloud 9 Community Garden. This is an outdoor collaborative space that will facilitate lessons on sustainable food choices, clean renewable energy, architectural design, and more. A team of 5 educators from Fuller Magnet Elementary for their project, Venus Lander Design Challenge. 5th graders will work in teams to engineer insulating devices to protect a simulated Venus lander. A team of 4 educators from Millbrook Magnet Elementary for their project, Taking Math Off the Page. 5th graders will collaborate with Millbrook High School's Agricultural Education Department to solve real-world problems while enhancing outdoor learning spaces on the Millbrook Elementary campus. And a team of 4 educators from South Garner High for their project, The Garner Chronicles, Our History, Our Stories. This oral history project will be a collaboration between Vandora Springs Elementary, East Garner Magnet Middle, South Garner High, and the Garner community. In gathering stakeholder input recently for our strategic plan, parents, students, employees, and community members all identified developing 4C skills as a top priority. As you can see by the ingenuity of these exceptional educators, we are committed to continuing to emphasize the importance of 4C skills as we prepare students for success inside and outside the classroom. Thank you. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Superintendent Moore. Those graduations were incredible, and it was so nice to be back in that space of the Convention Center or Maimandi in order to see our graduates and all of the work and culmination of that K-12 experience walk across that stage in just a moment, but feeling all of those pieces combined going into the ceremony. This is our last board meeting before year-round ends on June 29th and begins on July 7th. So I just want to take a moment to thank our year-round families, students, and educators for their commitment to this work. I know that it's always a stressful time as you're preparing for a new school year and getting ready to end a current school year. And we're excited to see our new Herbert Akins Road Middle School on July 7th. I want to extend congratulations to our board attorney, Jonathan Blumberg, who was given the Ann Majestic Distinguished Service Award from the Bar Association, from the education section, for his work. And so congratulations, Jonathan. And Majestic, of course, being a former Wake County board attorney. And thank you to the Holly Springs community who had invited our security team, Russ Smith and Kendrick Scott, for a community safety talk with Chief LaCory and other safety officers, predominantly our school resource officers. It was well attended and certainly helpful to the community to hear what we are doing in order to prevent such tragedies, because prevention is probably the biggest part in being able to speak with our children and our students at home. With that, Mr. Haggerty.
Thank you, Chair Mahaffey. Again, congratulations to all of our graduates. It really was wonderful to see all the graduating students, their families, the teachers and staff who supported them all come together for some wonderful, wonderful ceremonies. And I know all of you were out there because I saw all of you out there at all of the different ceremonies around the state. So looking forward to seeing what they do. We talked about our strategic plan and some sort of graduate index. It would be really interesting to see all the great things this class goes on to do. Again, it is Pride Month, and it is a good time for us to reaffirm that we are a welcoming and inclusive school system, and that we welcome all staff, all students, families of all types into our district, and we will not tolerate bullying and harassment of students because of whatever differences that they might have. So, additionally, I want to, on sort of a similar topic of equity and equity issues, we've talked about before North Carolina's State School Board Association, of which I'm a member, now belongs to a national organization. They left the National School Board Association and belong to a new organization, the Consortium of State School Board Associations, COSBA. COSBA has just formed the Urban Boards Alliance. And the purpose of this is to work with many of the states that had been NSBA members who were very active in the CUBE program, and to pick up where a lot of those initiatives had left off. And so to continue that work, and they'll be hosting their first annual symposium this fall in Atlanta, if anyone is interested, and I'm happy to provide that information to any of you if you are interested in that program. Continuing to meet with families and community members on school security issues, including several retired SROs and local chiefs. Again, I want to thank Mr. Smith for meeting with members of the Northwest Citizens Advisory Committee in Raleigh. Mr. Smith and representatives of the Raleigh Police Department talked about our lockdown drills, our real lockdown situations, what happens, what the protocols are, and answered a lot of questions from a lot of parents, and also took in a lot of feedback. And it was a great conversation to have. And the dedication here is that we were moments away from our, I think it was the Enloe graduation. And we were still doing the Zoom call, as the students were marching in. But Mr. Smith was going to make sure that every question got answered. So, again, kudos for that. And finally, if you've been following our strategic plan discussions, one of the items that we're talking about has been financial literacy. This has come up as a key priority that many parents, many in the community have wanted us to reemphasize. And so with this, there have been a number of people that we've reached out to in the community, people in financial services, banks, and others who are interested in what this work might look like. And so I've been referring them to our Business Alliance program with our high schools, looking for opportunities to work in a volunteer capacity with those high school programs and continue the good work that they're doing. And so if there are people in the community listening who are interested in those programs, we're happy to share that information and get you plugged into those great opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Waters.
Thank you, Chair Mahaffey. And I just wanted to share that June is my favorite month of the year for many reasons, and one of those is my birthday is this month. And in elementary school, I never had a chance to celebrate my birthday because school was always out, but this year, June 10th fell on the last day of the traditional calendar year, and so I had a chance to celebrate at a couple of different schools. Poe Elementary had their 5th grade celebration, and so I was able to go and see our future middle schoolers on their last day of elementary school, so that was a great way to celebrate the day, as well as going over to Brentwood Elementary to see the preschoolers there. So I feel like I made up for all those years of not having the time to celebrate at school. So thank you to those great schools, and have had a chance to go to many of the graduations, and it was such a special time to see so many stories and so many dreams come through in that culmination of that moment of all those years of hard work. And my only regret is that I didn't attend more of the graduations. So I'm so proud of all of our graduates, and I'm really thankful for that opportunity. And as we're coming off of the Juneteenth holiday, I had a chance to reflect on it this week, and one of the things that came to mind was a class that I took as an undergraduate student at NC State, and hard to believe it's been almost 25 years ago that I took this class, but it was African American History to 1865. And it provided a really deep dive into African American experience in the antebellum South, the trials and the triumphs of the Black experience. And all those years later, that class still means a lot to me. And I was curious to see if it's still being offered at State, and I found it was offered last fall. It's now called AFS 372 African American History through the Civil War 1619 to 1865. And I read the description. It said, African background and continuity of the particular role, experience, and influence of the African American in the United States through the Civil War. And what stood out to me in that description was it talked about the role, the experience, and the influence. And so as I reflected on this holiday, and it just becoming a federal holiday last year, it was really meaningful to look at the impact and the experiences of people of color and to really reflect on that as not just Black history, but as American history. And so I'm just really thankful that as a nation that we have now commemorated the ending of slavery through this federal holiday. So just a great chance to reflect on that as a nation. And I'm just really thankful for the District 4 community and all the work that is going on across the district, all of our students. Many are out for the summer, enjoying the summer, and looking forward to their next school year. And as our year-round calendar comes to an end, I'm excited for those students, but I really appreciate the opportunity to be in this seat and to see the great work that is going on around the district. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carter.
Thank you. And it seems like so long ago, our last board meeting, I feel like, with all the graduations. But because right that same week, Ms. Kushner and I were at Mills Park Middle School together, seeing some of the 8th graders make presentation about sustainability. And then a few days later, Ms. Mahaffey and I were at Lincoln Heights Elementary School seeing the other end. So the students had presented ideas and solutions, and then we saw some of those things already put into place. It was a kind of a closing of that whole idea. But I wanted to thank Ms. Wood for taking the time to really show us around. I know you've seen much of it before, but I had not, and really taking the time to explain all the work that she has done. From one of our friends mentioned the bees were there. They had the bees, composting, working to start gathering rainwater, and had the cistern almost ready to go. And the gardens and just the areas there, the pond, just birdhouses, just wonderful. So it was a really great way to kind of wrap up that, the whole sustainability idea. So thank you for that. And I too enjoyed the graduations, and I just wanted to take a moment to talk about kind of the different graduations, because there are the traditional high schools, and kind of kicked off, I know, earlier on with the early colleges, but it was Project Search that was actually here at Crossroads. Oh, I won't know the number, so whichever. It won't this building, but one of the other ones. 3, thank you. For me, I just loved the program. When Stephanie Shaw was here, and it showed me around with Karen Hamilton, and just getting to meet the students and the teachers and the IAs and interpreters and the general manager. And if you don't know much about the Project Search, I encourage you really to just do a quick Google search. Really, well, that's kind of fancy search, but it's all caps searches. It is just an outstanding currently at the Embassy Suites by Hilton at Raleigh-Durham. That's off of Harrison, Oaks, and Cary. So if you can support that facility, please do. Their general manager, and I always have to make sure I get it right, Bill McMallen, really stepped up when other places were like, I'm not sure I really want to do this. And I believe it has turned out to be just such a successful program for so many students that prove to us just what they can do. When some in society might think not so much, they say, look at me. And the instructor there Friday night at the graduation, Brandy, let me see, Miss Pittman, sorry. Her passion for this program and these students, it just showed. She had so many different stories to talk about. And the general manager was there, again, speaks volumes to him and what this program means to him. He was there, and he was he was learning about some things that had happened that he didn't know about in the hotel. I mean, some of these graduates had taken apart a dryer and fixed the dryer, folks, on their own. Okay, so it's just amazing, and I could go on and on and on. But thank you for those who did support this program, and please support that hotel because they are supporting some wonderful students and wonderful staff. Okay, so I'll go. And then also the SCORE Academy and Phillip High School graduation. Always touching to me, and I know SCORE had, I believe, 138. It was like huge this year, which is wonderful, and it meant we kind of got a little bit less information about the graduates and where they were headed, but just enough. But it speaks to me the volumes for the need for this type of program, and for our district to look at ways to ensure that we're holding on and bringing back students that aren't quite sure that school is the place for them. And they're able to figure things out, work through it, and there they are. And I could go on, y'all know. I just fully support that. So then the more traditional high schools, those were wonderful as well. And for me, I felt very honored to be there. And when I was seeing, the students get their diploma covers, because technically not their diplomas, for me, it symbolized hope. Because I know a lot of folks are like, well, these kids, just resilient. Well, some are not. Some it has been a true battle and a true struggle, and they weren't sure that they would be there. And I just want to say to all the graduates, you've all taken a different path in getting to earn that diploma. And I want to thank all the school staff, because teachers, of course, IAs, yes, but also, data managers, school secretaries can have an impact, CNS workers, bus drivers. There's so many folks have the ability to, social workers, an impact on these students and help them. Sometimes they may not realize it at the time, but then they might go back to something that they said to them and it was like, okay, I've got this. So I just hope that you all feel the same type of hope, and that you continue to find your way, whatever it may be. I know we heard some are, going to help take care of their families. Some are going to work a job. Some are going to work for a family business. Others are ready to start their own. Some are already got jobs in the hotel and another hotel as well. And so it's just great to hear all the stories, and I just truly wish you all the best, and thank all the students for hanging in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cash.
So I have limited remarks, but I do want to say that I enjoyed all the graduations like everybody else. I went to several of the fifth grade promotions, we can't call them graduations, and several of the middle school promotions, which I really enjoyed these as well. 3 high school graduations this last week. If the speeches given by the students that have gone through the pandemic during the 4 years were, you could not repeat the things that they have learned through that, and how well they presented it to the audience, and the closeness that they felt with their fellow students. And I I am so appreciative but so inspired by young people that we have in our school system, especially when they get in front of people and speak about these things. I think I will probably most miss being on stage and seeing the faces of the students when they turn their tassels. And I think I took that all in this year, knowing it wouldn't be something I'd get to see, looking them straight in the eye and they're turning their tassels. And they presented themselves very well, and their look of happiness and just great challenge for the future was just shown in every one of their eyes. I didn't see anybody that, like, I couldn't notice that. I want to give a personal thanks to Mr. Gardner, Dr. Lloyd Gardner, because he has endured me for so many years, and I especially thank you, Dr. Gardner. I got to spend 10 years with you a long time ago when I was on the board, and you taught me so much then, and had the privilege of coming back and being with you again these last 6 years. So I will miss you, but I know we'll catch up. So I wanted to say that. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson-Hostler.
Thank you. Dr. Gardner, the stories we could tell, but I will spare you because you've already cried, but there are two people, and some of you have heard me talk about one of them, who's no longer at Wake County, who really taught me the ropes of Wake County Public Schools, and that was Dr. Conley and Dr. Lloyd Gardner, who was my first teacher, my first area superintendent, who truly helped me immerse in both communities that District 2 represent. I technically didn't know where he lived because the Fuquay community and the Garner community both claimed him as theirs. And just take it from me, that especially somebody from a small town, like that is a resounding telltale sign of the impact that you've had in those communities. Small town folk, we don't invite you into our communities willingly. I can vouch for that. We don't, right? I mean, it really is important for us. We embrace new people, but truly, I really wasn't sure which community you lived in because of the way they embraced you. And thankfully to you, I felt the same embrace because you escorted me to all of my first meetings to said, no, we like Monica Johnson-Hostler. And so I will never forget that because trust me, I'm pretty sure some of those folks are my friends because of you. And so again, the stories we could go on, but I don't want to make you cry because I don't like when people do that. But I do want to share my appreciation publicly for you. And I know I'll see you a few more times, but I want to publicly thank you for truly being my orientation leader into Wake County Public Schools. Thank you very much, Dr. Gardner. Ms. Carter, I think I was going to spend my entire time talking about Project Search because it was overwhelmingly still emotional to hear the stories, to see the students, to hear the amazing partnership with the Embassy Suites in Cary and the work that we're doing with our students. Ms. Kushner and I were noting how far our students across, and there were 8 students, how far across the districts those students represented. Literally from each part of our county, we saw students being represented from our schools. And I think that speaks volumes to a county-wide school district, that is a small but large impact across our entire district that we were able to see with those 8 students. And I cannot speak enough about Ms. Pittman and the team who clearly not just taught those students, but knew those students and loved those students. And it just reminds me of, for me, how much we're spending seeing the social media around teachers not returning. And it's a reminder that we must embrace and share how much we appreciate them because we know the hard work, but seeing and feeling and hearing that directly from Ms. Pittman, who's like me, a talker. So that was helpful because I learned a whole lot about the program that I didn't know because she was a talker. And so, again, like Ms. Carter, I could go on, but it truly probably was the most impactful thing that I experienced literally probably this year to see and witness those students and the love that they had. It was absolutely profound. So I'm glad I got to attend Project Search graduation. And of course, sorry, Ms. McKenna, but every school board member who was there was like, how do we expand this? How do we get more? How do we do more? So my apologies, because I think I immediately turned to you and said, this should be bigger. And that's also to us. So I'm saying that to our board because it really is upon us to recognize the gems that we have in this district that we don't always get to lift up publicly. And that's one of those gems that I think is extremely important for us to, one, talk about with each other about ways that we support the work that we do in this district that everyone isn't aware of, including myself as a board member didn't know the depths of that program. So again, thank you to all the staff and supporters at Project Search. I also want to start my graduation speech by saying thank you, Brian Pittman, Crystal Reardon, Delinda Carter, and every other single Central Services staff who attended. I don't even know how many graduations we had, over 30 graduations that you were there. You shared pants and shoes when students needed to get across that stage. Again, for me, that speaks volumes to the lengths that our public school staff will go to in this district that people don't get to see and hear about. And it's important that we lift those up. So thank you all for being at every graduation with a shiny, bright smile on your face, ready to line us up and get us across that stage so that we could experience the joy that each of those students possess. And some of that joy was also reality check, like this really ends this chapter of my life. And even those speeches that we heard from our students, many of them spoke to, they might know what they are planning, but they don't know what's ahead. And I think it's one of those things we can all say, hindsight 2020 as adults, as we rush our childhood and then adulthood happens and we're pretty uncertain at what we thought it was going to be. And we heard a lot of our students speak to that. I certainly enjoyed hearing new job titles, which I'm familiar with because I have a teen, but almost every speech mentioned social media influencers as a career path. And I think that's important, again, for us to lift up as adults that they're totally different careers. I thought I entered a career that nobody heard of because I didn't know what a nonprofit executive director was. It wasn't on my job title list of things to do. And I've spent 25 years doing that. And so I think that our influencers will be saying the same thing, that when I was 10, I didn't know this was a career, but they're still doing it. And so it just speaks to how fast our world is changing and how our young people, whether they have the bandwidth personally and socially to do it, we saw the way that each of those speakers really was speaking to their peers. I felt like in a very important way, embracing each other as they ended this particular chapter. So it's always a great privilege to hear our young people speak to their experiences. And for us to embrace and hear what they are telling us and what does it mean, what is our role in the things, because they often are, in my opinion, calling adults to action too in their speeches. And so hopefully we're all listening, and hopefully those of you who were not there, you were live streaming the amazing graduations that we were able to witness in Wake County. And thank you to all the folks who made it happen. And again, we always forget to shout out parents during graduation, but seeing how I'm entering my senior year, I'm going to shout out all the parents as well. Because it is quite emotional to get the first email to say it's time for senior pictures. More emotional than time to start kindergarten orientation. So to all the parents too who are embracing every minute of this summer as their students choose to go, and I'm going to borrow this from my high school South Garner, choosing their 4 E's, whether it's entrepreneurship, like our influencers, enrollment in our colleges, enlistment in our military, and then those who are going straight into employment. Congratulations and hats off to all of our students, family, friends, and everyone who poured into making our graduation and our graduates a success. And for those of us who are still trying to figure out where we're going and what's next, and maybe spend an additional year with Wake County Public Schools, I assure you that what I heard from those students is there are indeed a number of adults in our buildings who are willing to pour in above and beyond to our students. So for those who did not cross that stage this year, please don't give up hope, and remember that Wake County does have a large number of programs that reaches back to retain our students. And so please maintain the hope Ms. Carter spoke of, and hopefully you'll continue to stick in with us as we can see all of our students across that stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Scott.
Thank you. And I wanted to share my gratitude as well for all the staff members who made the graduations possible. It is a lot of work, and also to thank other elected officials and dignitaries who attended the events to celebrate our students and their teachers and their families on those days. If you live in the Zebulon area, especially if you are a business leader, please keep in mind the Zebulon Youth Wellness program that Mayor York is starting to implement, looking for different leaders to come together to promote youth wellness. So we have
some of the commissioners, some business leaders in partnership with WakeMed. It's a great opportunity that came out of having a community discussion. So it's when you see those little calendar things, I know I get them from the town of Wake Forest, and their communication is great. I love it, but sometimes we don't skim them. But if you can make it a point to glance at those, it's always a good thing to do. So keep that in mind. July 26th at 5:30 is when they're having an additional meeting to continue that planning. Huge congratulations to Lake Myra. They received their Lighthouse certification for the Leader in Me program. I know several of our schools in WCPSS use the Leader in Me program, and it is just outstanding. And I wish I could have been there, but it was also the same time as one of the high school graduations. But just a great program. Every time I have been in that school, you really see that. Even outside of the celebration day that they have, you see that program living and thriving through the students, through the experiences that they have in the school, the interactions they have, not only with each other, but with educators, and the educators and adults in the building have with the students. So just a huge congratulations to them. Not every Leader in Me school gets that certification, so it was a big deal that they were able to receive that. And then just, again, a huge congratulations to our educators. I know it is an emotional journey. I was thinking 3 years ago when I was talking about graduations and offering congratulations, and I thought the last school is East Wake High School. It's out of the graduations, East Wake High School is the last one, and how that was one of the first schools back in December of 2018 that I visited. And I spent maybe an hour or two that morning. Again, this is back in December of 2018 at the school, and just having the most amazing conversation with Mr. Alston and meeting some of the teachers and seeing engaging projects that they were doing that will stay with me forever, that the students were doing collaborative work with the economics class and math, I think. I mean, just outstanding work. But one of the things that stayed with me, and these are the things that if you've never stepped foot into one of these schools, you wouldn't know that these little things happen every day, all of the time. But a student came up to Mr. Alston and said, could I have just a second? And she said, I just wanted to thank you again for helping me to be able to go to that conference a few weeks ago. It was just life-changing, and it just meant so much to me. And he was just or the student was thanking him. And then as he turned back to me to finish up our tour, I just could see tears in his eyes, because that is what these moments that our educators, that our principals have with students each and every day, things like that are why I do hope that some of our teachers who are exhausted and principals who are exhausted, please know that those moments are not seen by the outside world who have a lot of opinions. They're not seen by them, but they are seen, and they are felt by students who are our future, and one of the most important investments that we collectively need to continue to invest in. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Martin.
Thank you. I'd too like to extend congratulations to the 2022 graduates. We wish you well in your future, whatever that will be. Go change the world. It's always inspiring to see the stoles and the cords for all the engagement. Recognizing, everything from CTE credits to Arts Honor Societies to the National Honor Society. That engagement is impressive, and we really want to see you go on and do great things. But I will say that one of the things that inspires me the most at graduations is watching several of our students with special needs walking across the stage. A couple get out of the wheelchair and walk across the stage, and not only is it inspiring to see the accomplishments that they have had, but it's also very inspiring to see how the school community has surrounded these young people. And so from our highest honors graduates to the students, with several special needs, I know in my own classrooms, frankly, a number of the students with special needs work harder than the straight A students. And I just want to really highlight the successes and wish all graduates well and a productive future. We're, of course, coming to the end of traditional calendar and soon for year-round calendar. To all educators, to all students, have a great break. Rest, learn, and refresh. And we look forward to seeing people coming back in the fall. I, too, want to say thank you to Dr. Gardner for the years of working together. Thank you for all that you've done. And I, too, want to reflect on Juneteenth, a very important date in the history of this nation. It is good that it is now a federal holiday where all of us need to celebrate this aspect of American history. It is not just an African-American holiday. It is a holiday for all of us in this country where we had the formal end to slavery. Of course, it's sobering to recognize that the vestiges of slavery are still around us. And I think that is why, in many respects, I've committed my career and this work to education, because I do believe education is one of the primary ways to begin to end the vestiges of slavery. I mean, begin after all these years, but it's continuing work, and I do believe that education is absolutely pivotal to build that more perfect union, which is what we should all be about. And finally, I will again address the COVID numbers. I know there are some people in the community who are upset that I do that, but I think it is important that we pay attention to these issues. Some have asked, where does the data that I use come from? The data that I use is all publicly available data. It comes from the Wake County Public Schools dashboard. It comes from the Wake County dashboard, although unfortunately the Wake County dashboard has stopped reporting data as of June 13th. So we now do not have as real-time data. That should be a concern to all of us, because if we don't have real-time data, we're reacting instead of being proactive. And other data comes from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, like I say, all publicly available. Again, because of the nature of reporting, the most up-to-date data we can get is here from Wake County Public Schools. The week of July 5th, there were 413 students and 140 staff who got infected. That was the last week of traditional calendar school. I will note that if you have 140 staff and 20,000 employees, that is equivalent to a infectivity rate of 700 cases per 100,000 population. So among our school staff, we're seeing still very high rates of transmission. That week, there were, like I said, there were 413 students, 140 staff. Last week, the week of June 12th, there were 155 staff and 155 students and 93 staff. So that is a drop, but we also went from everybody in school to just the year-round people in school. So the overall normalized rates really have not changed that much. It's also important to note that 65 to 70% of staff and 80% of students infected are in the elementary schools. So transmission is high. As you go into the summer, there's going to be more opportunity to be outside. Take advantage of that. But whenever you're inside, particularly in areas of high population density, it is highly recommended to wear a mask. Like I say, this last outbreak has lasted longer than the previous worse outbreak, and I think it's largely because we're not collectively embracing safety protocols. Be safe, and stay healthy. Thank you.
Ms. Kushner?
Thank you, Chair Mahaffey. And I will wrap it up by also echoing my colleagues and the joy of graduation. We were able to see the first four-year class of South Garner High School graduate, the first graduating class for Green Level. I agree it was wonderful to be back at those large venues and be all together as school communities. Also enjoyed Project Search, and I would point our folks and the public to go look on the Wake County website, wcpss.net. You can see profiles of some of our
spotlight on graduates. There's Princess the Welder, who's giving Rosie the Riveter a run for her money, and a profile of Omar from Project Search, which targets students with disabilities and school to work program. It is a wonderful program. I think there is a second site in the works for Wake County Schools, so I applaud the lifting up of that program. I also was able to go to Mount Vernon for one of the 8th grade elevation ceremonies, and it's always great to see those students who have done accelerated learning get back on track. They're students who are older than their middle school peers who go to Mount Vernon and River Oaks and get accelerated to start high school on time and be with their age-appropriate peers. So a lot of inspiration around graduations. And to Ms. Carter's point, it's those students who talk about resilience and getting through the last 4 years, but also recognizing those who've struggled and how significant crossing that stage was for this class of 2022 across the board. So wonderful, good, best of all wishes to our wonderful students. And thanks to Mr. Hegarty and the board for lifting up Pride Month. It's so important to underscore inclusion and combating bigotry and bullying in our school system and showing that we're a school system that welcomes all children. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get on to public comment, is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Okay, we now move on to public comment. Public comment is accepted in video, written, and in-person formats. Members of the public are welcome to offer comments or criticism directed at substantive ideas, actions, or procedures of the board and individual board members. The laws and policies of North Carolina provide that issues or concerns involving individual personnel matters are confidential and therefore not appropriate for public comment settings. Concerns related to personnel issues may be addressed through applicable WCPSS personnel, the grievance policy, or other applicable policies. Those offering comments to the board, including students, may discuss issues and matters of general concern but should refrain from discussing confidential student information. Concerns related to confidential student matters may be addressed through applicable WCPSS personnel, the grievance policy, or other applicable policies. In written public comment, there are 6 comments, and these comments are linked on the same online agenda we are using for tonight's meeting. That agenda, as well as guidelines for those wishing to submit comments for future meetings, can, as always, be found at the school district's website, wcpss.net, under the tab labeled School Board. The topics and speakers for the comments are as follows. We have one on Juneteenth, one on study skills, one on various topics, one on Title IX, one on inclusive curriculum, and one on randomized clinical trials. For those of you that are here to speak to the board during public comment, you may speak for up to 3 minutes. A yellow light will illuminate at the podium when there are 30 seconds remaining in your time, and then a red light will light up when your time is up. In the interest of maintaining civility and decorum, however, speakers are encouraged to address their comments to the Board of Education and refrain from personal attacks and insults directed at the board, individual board members, staff, or members of the general public. Please remain at the podium during your speaking time, and any material you have and wish to share with the board should be handed to the board attorney, Mr. Blumberg, either before or after your comments. We have 14 speakers today. The first is a combo of students, I believe, and that is Emily Mead and Claire Stokel. And feel free to adjust those microphones.
Hi, my name is Emily Mead, and I am in 4th grade at Turner Creek Year-Round Elementary. Gun violence is scary and causes stress for students and teachers. Losing loved ones causes indescribable pain and can make you very angry. The fact that people go into school and kill kids is absolutely unacceptable. This must stop. Schools should have more resources to stop this. Students are in terror because of this. No one knows when the next one will be and where it will be. The fact that students have to live in fear is unfair.
My name is Claire Stokel, and I'm finishing 5th grade at Oak Grove Year-Round Elementary. In my school, when we do our Code Red drills, which we don't do very often. I haven't done one since second grade. We don't even have a good place to hide. Sometimes I do wonder if someone will come into my school with a gun. I worry that my teachers or my classmates could get hurt. In the school my friend goes to, some of the classrooms are in trailers, and the classrooms that are in trailers have no place to hide at all. We can't just think that hiding from this problem will fix it. It seems like all the adults who are supposed to help are ignoring this.
But there is some good news, too. There are many things that we can do to reduce gun violence. I don't think we should give teachers guns because kids could find them and get hurt by accident. But I do think it would be a good idea to make sure our school buildings are safer by making sure all kids are in a real learning classrooms and have what they need to keep kids safe.
Schools could also spend more money on services to help kids who are having a hard time. And we can all ask our leaders to make it harder for bad people to get the guns that they use by passing gun laws. One gun law that I thought of was to make people who want to get guns to have a license before they buy a gun.
Could you please take action to help keep our schools safe from gun violence? We all need to vote in November for candidates who care about kids and schools. There's even a primary runoff in just 2 weeks for sheriff, and most of our school officers are sheriffs.
Thank you for letting us speak tonight, and thank you for thinking about gun safety.
Thank you, Emily and Claire. Our next speaker is Christopher Nordstrom.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Christopher Nordstrom. First I want to thank all of you for the jobs you do. It's a very tough job, and you face a lot of difficult trade-offs in your work, and for the most part, you generally get it right, for the vast majority of it, I would say. But there was one item on today's agenda that I saw that I do disagree with and was hoping I could talk to tonight, which is the almost $800,000 of contracts that the school boards wanted to spend with school resource officers. I'm asking you to please reconsider and instead invest in personnel that actually make our students safe. Personnel such as teachers, counselors, social workers, psychologists, and nurses. We've seen multiple times that school resource officers don't improve the safety of our schools. They don't stop school shootings. We've seen that in Texas. We've seen that in Florida. Instead, what they do is increase the number of suspensions and arrests for students, particularly our black students. This $800,000 could instead fund approximately 10 teachers, counselors, social workers, psychologists, or nurses, personnel that actually improve the safety of our students. Please recall it's not just the research, but your own students who have let you know that SROs do not improve school safety, and they have demanded a removal from SROs in their schools. I hope you'll listen to them. I hope you'll have the courage to join other large districts like Los Angeles, Denver, Seattle, Minneapolis, in phasing SROs out of our schools. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amy Williams.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm here today as a parent of 3 grade school children. I'm not running for any office, I'm not a terrorist, and I'm not out for any of the teachers or educators. It became very clear early on after COVID hit that parents were not seen or heard at the table when it came to our children's health, safety, and well-being. In the words from Mr. Martin about parental rights bill that passed last week, he says, "This is a desire for parental control of their children." This statement has brought me once again to the front lines. The public school system has clearly steered away from what it was set up to do. Its only purpose is to educate my children to his or her highest potential in reading, math, science, and social studies, not to politically boost persuasion or drive life-altering decisions. But in the last few years, I've seen the school boards using agendas, following the money, and making this a political theater, and a place where it should never be allowed. It became more clear to us parents that the education curtain is resulting in an imbalance of power between parents and government once COVID hit. I, for one, have lost my trust in the education system. I come from a large family of educators. My sister-in-law has taught Wake County for 12 years. I know and love many teachers and the staff. And all these board meetings, I got to see maybe a few teachers come. And I've been private messaging them during the shutdowns and the mask mandates, and I ask why you're not coming to these meetings, and I think we all know that answer. I read the survey results sent out to our teachers, and I was shocked to see the results in the eyes of the teachers that even they feel we parents are being shut out. 81% of them. You see, we parents believe it's our parental right to teach moral values, identities, and each parent's choice of religion or not. It is the job of the public schools to teach them reading, math, science, and history, and without that education, we already set up our children to fail, and every parent wants their child to succeed. I've watched meeting after meeting of parents coming to this board to beg you to remove the porn books, to beg you to revisit math curriculum, to put textbooks back, to have more transparency in the curriculums. Parents asking what is being done to better provide academics for the learning loss that has occurred during the shutdown. I've also wondered why this elected board that's represented one of the largest school districts in the United States limit the seating capacity to 30 people at one point when you could have easily opened one of those gyms or auditoriums that you were just talking about. And with the last heartbreaking event that happened in Texas, I wonder why when we come to these board meetings, there's security and police outside, but our teachers, children, and staff are not protected. Clearly, this board is more about their own safety than the lives of our children and teachers and staff. And these are all issues that this board needs to address. And as the board continues to ignore these issues, it further divides us parents and educators. And the only division our children should be learning is math. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Carrie Bly.
Hello again. He said my last speech was confusing, so let's try it a different way. The last board speech, I showed you a glimpse of the present state of math curriculum options. Now, let's see if my 3 years sitting in this room with you fine people, if I can predict the future. You've been keeping student achievement numbers and math performance in Wake County very close to your vest, and if you report soon that math kids' grades are slipping, EOG scores are abysmal, or that if you report that your grade recovery students are recovering core math courses, you might need to start looking for new curriculum or resources. But remember your options from last time. You have illustrative mathematics, owned and operated by the author of the Common Core Standards, and he and his team have been unable to write a K-5 or high school curriculum until recently. But you can't choose that one because it's only being released in traditional sequencing for the time being. So you can't do that. You can adopt Engage New York, otherwise known as Eureka Math now, but teachers historically don't like that. It has a rather poor reputation, so you can't choose that one. There is Envision Mathematics. Pearson Publishing almost lost their shirt when states dropped the expensive Park math assessments. So they turned back to curriculum. Johnston County just adopted this. You could ask them how it's going, but that would mean a complete overhaul of your middle school math curriculum. Now you have IM and OR share the exact same modules for their 6 through 8 curriculum. They partnered together years ago to write them. But Open Up Resources is not allowed to use illustrative mathematics K-5 or high school modules because they're fighting with each other. Do you remember the article, Why is Everyone Using the Same OER? So Open Up Resources had to go find other K-5 and other high school friends that would play with them. Sorry. They picked MVP, Math Company, your district-provided math curriculum, to morph into their new high school math curriculum. I have no idea who wrote their K-5, so this is my prediction. This could be our kids' future in Wake County, an Open Up Resources beta test across the board, grades K-12. It's not a giant leap to imagine it. You would get a rebranded and renamed version of the controversial MVP high school math curricula. You would look like you're taking action against a dire situation, and as a bonus, you would get your first elementary math program in over a decade. I truly hope that my prediction is wrong, but let's just slap your hand in case you reach for this cookie and think that no one's watching and no one understands the repercussions. I don't think you've talked about it because Open Up Resources applied for the high school textbook adoption in North Carolina, and they just got on the list. So now you're free to talk to them. And now you have to understand that they're brand new, this new morphed curriculum. They're a baby in the world. and it could be a beta test of epic proportions for the entire state of North Carolina.
Thank you, Ms. Bly. Our next speaker is Stephanie Lormand.
It's so difficult these days to even know where to start, but I guess I'll begin with stuff I've said before. Funding more cops in schools does nothing to protect our children, and we make data-driven decisions in Wake County, right? Seeing the response from the same cohort terrified of queer inclusive flashcards pivot to arming teachers, just what is this nonsense at this point? Also, some of the same people wanting to fill classrooms with guns to protect students have been trespassing in carpool lines, passing out their "why we hate books" propaganda, willfully and deliberately flaunting school visitation and check-in policies. That's not safe for my kids. Some of these parents will still love their gay kids, some will not. We wouldn't need strangers passing out hugs at Pride if other parents did their jobs to love unconditionally. Unlike racism and sexism, which have institutional and systemic definitions that include power plus privilege, bigotry is actually a choice. Anyone can participate in bigoted actions, and anyone can choose to stop participating in bigoted actions, today even. I predict the next complaint of the Victimhood Martyr Club will be something along the lines of, "It's about innocence." Except it's not, because there were no statements against the recent findings from the Southern Baptist Assembly. And some of y'all need to clean up the realities of your own institutions before you worry about a few books in a high school library.
Ms. Lormand, please make sure that your comments are addressed to the board.
To the members of the board running for re-election, I don't blame you, even as I worry for our future. What I'd like to ask of y'all between now and the day you exit those seats is boldness. Bold actions. Please spend the next months on actions that make voting for your replacements something promising for the parents of color, for the parents of the LGBTQIA+ community, rather than just a vote against people running on an anti-public education platform. The institution of public education is not perfect by any means, and not every teacher believes in inclusive environments. But unlike other American institutions, quality public education has the power of possibility, and you have the power to enact that possibility. And if this is your last term, you have nothing to lose but to go forward and boldly make the things that we should have been doing for the last decade, starting with not funding the cops. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Chad Stahl.
Thank you. I am going to address some things. I'm going to tell my story for the first time ever in this boardroom in front of you guys. I think that it has to be told at this point because there are members of this board who are engaging in the creating of an illusion of what I lived through last fall. And so I'm here to just point out a few things specifically. So on September 17th, 2021, my principal emailed me and made the statement, "I am a WCPSS employee, so I am charged with following and enforcing their requirements. I do not have an option to adjust the requirements. If any child shows up to school without a mask, we provide them one. No person enters the building without a mask. Students do not wear masks all day. They remove them for lunch, recess, snack, and water breaks." That was on September 17th. And then on September 21st, this was said.
Be clear that there are so many sicknesses that I don't want children to get that aren't deadly. And COVID happens to be one of them.
The following day, I went to my elementary school. I walked my 8-year-old son up to the door. I explained to the principal, I've begged you for risk assessment. I've begged you to produce a policy. Wake County Public School System has a policy filled with numbers. There's not one single policy number in there that says children mask, ... It doesn't exist in the policy book. So with that information, I went to that school, walked up to the door. My son looks over at the principal, looks at me. I tell you, gets a little nervous, said, okay. Asked the principal, said, would you mind please telling my son he does not need to be afraid of you? The principal says, you don't need to be afraid of me, but you're not allowed to go into the school without a mask on. I look at the principal and I said, well, we both know that that's not true. And he says, well, no. He goes, he can go in, but he will be isolated in a room all day long, all by himself. When my 8-year-old starts to panic, I turn my attention to him. And I start talking to him and addressing the fact that it's going to be okay. We will leave. If they're not going to let you in, we'll leave. You do not need to be afraid of this man. So this man comes back into the conversation with me and my 8-year-old, threatens us with security, police, whatever. My 8-year-old begins to cry, and this principal starts laughing at him. In that moment, I had to take a little pause. Then the principal comes back to me and my child and says to us, "I didn't do this to my kids today." And my response back to him was, "What's that? Stand up for your kids? Defend your kids?" Because that's what I'm doing. I understand those things might be offensive to some, but for me in that moment, with my 8-year-old son being threatened, being bullied by a grown man, I think I handled the situation the best I could. Thank you.
Mr. Stahl. Our next speaker is Julie Page.
Friendly reminder, just a mom, not a terrorist. Please don't call the FBI. We have some woke school board members here that like to make up their own definitions to common words. So please let me clear some things up for you, because words matter. Rights. Justly entitled power or privilege. Power, legal right of control, authority, or influence over others. Entitlement, a right to benefits or privileges specified by law or contract. Privilege, a special right or advantage granted to a person or a group. Authority, the power to influence or command thought, opinion, or behavior. Control, to have power or influence over. Influence, the power to cause an effect. Rights, power, entitlement, privilege, authority, benefits, influence, command, control. Do you see the circular argument here? Does having parental rights mean having parental control? Hell yes, it does. I would like to summarize some Supreme Court precedents, also known as the parental rights doctrine. Prince versus Commonwealth of Massachusetts, 1944. Government should not hinder parental function and freedom. It should respect the private realm of family life and cannot enter. Wisconsin versus Yoder, 1972. It is the fundamental interest of parents to guide the religious future and education of their children. This primary role of parents in the upbringing of their children is now established beyond debate as American tradition. Parham versus J.R., 1979. Parents have what a child lacks in maturity, experience, and judgment required for making difficult decisions. The idea that governmental power should supersede parental authority in all cases because some parents abuse and neglect children is offensive to the American tradition. Troxel versus Granville, 2000. The interest of parents in the care, custody, and control of their children is perhaps the oldest fundamental liberty recognized by the Supreme Court. I certainly hope this clears up any confusion on who has the rights to control our children. Please consult the board attorney if necessary. If all of this is precedent in America, you may ask, why then do we need a parental bill of rights in North Carolina? The answer to that is simple. School system overreach, meaning the superintendent and her minions, school board members, a few principals, and unfortunately some teachers too. Oh, not to forget the biggest supporter and campaign donor for you all, the NCAE Fake Teachers Union. I'll leave with this. My children are my children. They are not yours. They are mine. I get to teach them their morals, values, ethics, and ideologies, not you. Stick to academics and stay in your lane.
Our next speaker is Janet Peterson. Janet Peterson. Okay. Becky Lou Hobbs.
Hello, good to be here again. Last school board meeting of the 2021-22 school year. Third year affected by, school year affected by COVID, and we're 833 days under a so-called state of emergency by Governor Cooper. So during this time, both the board and the NCAE Fake Teachers Union have mocked those who have spoken out against learning loss and parental rights. And the board has also ignored several parental concerns about the budget. So let's take a look. So we're awaiting end of year report cards, but let's look at last year's. So last school year, third grade reading, 42% not proficient. Third grade math, 50% not proficient. Math 1, 79% not proficient. That's just a highlight to show the failures of what's been going on. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to speak with State Superintendent Catherine Truitt regarding her action plan regarding learning loss. And I wondered, what are you guys doing about it? I mean, other than just buying another online platform for kids to use. Okay, so that aside, let's look at the teaching working conditions surveys that just came out. There's some things questions I want to point out. One question, what percent of your instruction, referring to teachers, has been spent reteaching prior grade academics? So I drilled down to Wake County. 44% of the teachers spent between 50% to 100% of their time reteaching previous grade standards. And in my daughter's elementary school, it was 72% of the teachers said they spent 50% to 100% of the time. I mean, that's deplorable. And then when asked how far behind they think their students are compared to previous years, 72% of the Wake County teachers said their students were between 3 months and a year behind. I mean, we're crippling our kids. And then there's the issue of parental rights. I won't go into that much because that's been addressed by some other people here. But I will also remind you, my children are my children. They do not belong to the school. They do not belong to the state. It is my job as their parent to teach them morals. It is the school's job to give them an education. And then quickly, let's look at the budget. There's over 100 line items tonight on facility bids, contracts, renewals, technology, staffing, and so forth, totaling over $104 million. How can you possibly adequately review that in a meeting tonight? I just don't see that happening. And it makes me wonder, what are you doing? Are you being responsible with our funds? So I look forward to November and the general elections. 139 days. These are our kids, our future.
Thank you, Ms. Lou Hobbs. Our next speaker is Christina Spears.
Good evening, Chair Mahaffey, Vice Chair Hagerty, and board members, Superintendent Moore, and district staff. I'm Christina Spears, coordinating teacher in the Office of Equity Affairs for a few more days. I often come to this podium asking critical questions that acknowledge the many inequities that exist within our school system that cause harm to our most marginalized staff, students, and families. It's in my nature, it's in my job description, and it's one of the reasons I'm proud to serve as Wake NCAE's president on July 1st. It's also in my nature as an educator and part of my work as a local union leader to acknowledge and affirm the work of public school workers and leaders. I approach this podium tonight to do that for you. In our organization, we use the words of Marshall Gans to recognize that leadership is hard. I'm grateful for district leadership and our local school board that accepts the responsibility to create conditions that enable our school community to achieve success in the face of uncertainty. Thank you, school board members, Superintendent Moore, senior leadership team, district staff, and others for your time, your labor, and your leadership this year and beyond. It's been a difficult year for us public school staff, students, and families, but I recognize it's also been a difficult year for you. The countless hours, scheduled and impromptu meetings, the diligent work on next year's budget and strategic plan, and the impossible decisions you make do not go unnoticed, and I appreciate you. WCPSS has continued to demonstrate its commitment to excellence during a global pandemic, amid an educator shortage, sans funding commitment from the state, while receiving criticism from many. There is much to be celebrated, and at the end of another successful school year, we should take a moment to recognize the many ways that Wake wins. We've seen another brilliant class of students walk across the graduation stage. We've added graduates to our future teachers cohort. We've been recognized by national and statewide organizations and received numerous awards. We've begun visionary work on our strategic plan. We've partnered with community organizations to improve the lives of students. We've worked with commissioners to fund our school system and ensure we pay our classified staff a living wage, as well as the multiple comments you've mentioned tonight, just to name a few. I'm grateful to be a Wake County Public School System employee, and I look forward to being in this together as we begin the 22-23 school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kristen Beller.
Good evening, Superintendent Moore and board members. Wake and CAE members often approach problem solving from an orientation that our working conditions are our students' learning conditions, which is why our members stay busy advocating for continuous improvement in our schools. Our students deserve learning conditions that allow their teachers and other educators to meet their needs and set them on a course to thrive. I'm grateful for how hard our members have worked to communicate the achievements and needs of our students and staff. You, in turn, have also worked hard to listen to and work with the amazing public school staff, students, and families who share a common goal, that every student is challenged in meaningful learning every day by highly qualified professional educators and support staff so that they may reach their full potential and lead productive lives in our complex and changing world. The staff who feed, transport, teach, support, coach, and care for our students in Wake County are hands down the best of the best. We are creative, have taken collaboration to whole new levels, challenge ourselves to communicate in new and innovative ways, and remain critical thinkers as we receive new information and make thousands of thoughtful decisions every day. Our school district is one of the top 3 employers in our county, and we support the learning of more students than the vast majority of school systems around our country. Each student in our school system has at least one adult in their life who cares deeply for them and wants them to have a secure and stable future. And in North Carolina, we know that public education is an opportunity for our children to have stability, security, and a door to new possibilities. As an economic driver in our community, public schools are also our collective investment to secure stability in our communities. What if all of the parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and public school staff who partner each day to support our students also partnered each day to support a strong future by enthusiastically engaging in how we fortify our public school system? If all 20,000 public school staff and all those adults who care for our 160,000 public school students were united in support for our public schools, y'all, there's no future that would not be accessible to our students. Nothing would be off of the table for them, and all things would be possible. And I want you just to imagine what that might be like. This year, it's possible for that kind of unity. Every other week, we hear from people who have announced their candidacy for school board from this podium while tearing down our public school system and disparaging the work of individual staff members and even whole schools and departments. And honestly, it's been exhausting to listen to the misrepresentations that are spoken as truth and go unchallenged due to the nature of public comment from week to week. But I'm a hopeful person, and I trust and believe in our parents, our coworkers, and our community. I trust them to reject any candidate whose stories refuse to acknowledge, support, or uplift the amazing work our students and staff do every day. I trust our students turning 18 by November to fiercely insist that anyone who wants a decision-making seat at this table or any other must be a champion for themselves and other students and recognize the incredible value our diverse and beautiful community brings to our schools.
Our next speaker is Daniel Grant King.
Good evening, Chair Mahaffey, Superintendent Moore, and board members. As we have closed the chapter of the 21-22 school year, and as we enter into the next, I, as an educator and advocate with the State Board of Education Committee on Advocacy, as we look back on this year, there are a few things that I would like to note that we have accomplished along with many others at DPI and many other advocates. One thing that we have been able to accomplish this year is I've spoke with one of our committee advisors who has constantly reminded us that when we go above and beyond to ensure the safety, equal opportunities for our educators to grow in the school system across the state, and many other avenues, we do succeed. So this evening, I would like to take just an opportunity to reflect on the current school year and on hoping for the next. Also, I would like to first of all say thank you to this board and many others who have constantly advocated to ensure that our students, faculty, and staff are safe, making sure that employees are compensated for the work that they do each and every day in the classrooms, from our teachers to our instructional assistants, to our bus drivers, custodians, and many others who stay late most days, depending on what meetings and other things and other duties that has to be done. But in and through it all, we still go above and beyond to make sure that our families are the victory in the end. So as we prepare to go into the next school year, I would like for this board to consider many other avenues to make sure that our students, our faculty, and their families have the fair opportunity and a fair say in what goes on in this school system. Because it is duly noted that the public is watching. Families at home are watching. And above all, it is what you say and do will determine whether or not things will be either in a good outcome or in a bad outcome. So with the last few minutes I have left, I had wanted to make it very clear that we have to work together to ensure the safety and the value of our students and families. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Melanie Connolly.
Good evening, School Board, Wake County Public Schools, Ms. Moore, Ms. Happy, Mr. Haggerty. My name is Melanie Connolly, and I'm here to kind of talk a little bit about Title IX, as it does turn 50 years this week. I'm kind of surprised we didn't have a celebration, a video, slides representing women in the school system. Perhaps maybe next year you all think about that and make up for it. No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. This law is to prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs and activities. This has greatly impacted women, sport opportunities. However, when it was written, the intent was to give women equality in education. Women were now having opportunities they'd never seen before. Medical schools, law schools. It opened up a lot of avenues. Although 50 years in the making, we still have disparities in equal opportunity. Opportunities exist for our male athletes that our female athletes are not privy to. One is being academic tracking and resources that are put in place for success to prevent failing of classes. It's probably coach-driven, principal-driven. They make sure that male athletes are turning in assignments, making sure that they're being tracked. So and it's all done in a positive, it's all done positive in a way that a student, if he has to remediate on a test or take some extra help tutoring, he's not penalized where he won't be able to play. in the game or because he missed practice or half a practice. It's not like that on the girls' side. Outside donations of paid tutoring is available for male athletes. It's provided and submitted under gifts to the system. We've noted that dentists have given money for athletic tutoring, but I've never seen it for my daughter. Male athletes need time to remediate extra help and tutoring, and it's not held against them. It has given them the opportunity to still play in the game. Male teams support inclusion. Coaches that coach male sports will offer guidance and supports to all athletes, focusing on those that need services the most. Motivational speakers are invited to male sports teams to shine positive light, overcoming hardships, stories of resiliency, staying focused, living your purpose in your life, and female teams are not getting that.
Your time is up.
I ask that you look for a Title IX representative at each school.
Our next speaker is Jessica Lewis. Jessica Lewis? All right, this concludes public comment. We have 3 information items. The first is our updates from the superintendent. Ms. Moore.
Good evening again. I'm recapping the work session for today. There were 2 items that the board engaged in review and discussion. The first was the continued work on the strategic plan, where our partners from RTI came with Chief of Staff Lloyd Gardner and Assistant Superintendent Brad McMillan to finalize, confirm with the board some of the foundational elements in the revised strategic plan, including the mission, the vision, a few changes to core beliefs, in particular core belief number 4 and 7, and then review the strategic priorities again, with continued discussion around the essential pillars as they were identified for those strategic priorities, and looking at student outcomes and language as we would move forward. We got good feedback from the board on, in particular, how we might set up language around goals when it comes time for divisions and departments to do that work, as well as action steps that might need to be included as we do that also. So we appreciate that time today. Next steps really will be for staff to continue to work. At some point in the near future, the board will be asked to approve that final language of the strategic plan, and the staff will continue their work. The second item was a security update, where our staff from the security office, Russ Smith, provided an overview of the structure of the Office of Security, some language and information around emergency response plans, how schools are equipped, what kind of training happens, a little extended language about what it means to be in a code yellow, red, and then move back to a code green and how that happens, really focusing on the responsibilities of schools and the supports that are provided by the Office of Security to school staff in order to do that work. And the emergency response plans, in particular, as responsive to and required by WCPSS Board Policy 2312. And then the final component of that report from security was really to go back over the district-wide security assessment that has occurred in the past couple of years and that you've been hearing some reports on in the last few months. And that is an assessment that was done with the School Safety Advocacy Council, and then just the updating of the work on the 7 key areas that will continue based on the recommendations from that report. Security Department thanks you for having the opportunity to really provide that overview. We know that it's been heavy on a lot of folks' minds, and they wanted some understanding of what processes and protocols are in place. And so today was a good overview of that, to which we can refer families and staff and then answer additional questions as needed. And that is what we did in our work session today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Superintendent Moore. Up next, we have the School Health Advisory Council, or our SHAC annual report. And we have Dr. Edward McFarland and Jennifer Zerda who is our SHAC chairperson with us today, Dr. McFarland.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Haffey and members of the board and Superintendent Moore. The School Health Advisory Council, lovingly known as SHAC around here, is charged with providing recommendations to the Board of Education and the superintendent. The recommendations are in alignment with 10 areas of the whole child, the whole school, and the whole community model. Every 3 years, the SHAC shall include a report to the school board and about the public school system's compliance with laws and policies that is related to student wellness. Per the Wake County SHAC bylaws, an annual report to the Board of Education is required. This year marks the 32nd year anniversary of Wake County Student Health Advisory Council. And Jennifer Zerda is the current chair, and she is here this evening to provide the council's annual report to the board that will outline commendations and recommendations with regard to student wellness. So, Jennifer.
Good evening, Chair Mahaffey, board members, Superintendent Moore. As mentioned, my name is Jen Zerda, and along with being the proud parent of 2 Wake County public school systems, I am the current Wake County chair. Our vice chair is Michelle Mulvihill, and our secretary is Larry Botter. Brian Glendenning is our liaison to the SHAC. So if you could move to the next slide. So those are our members. And then the following slide. So as outlined in the Healthy Active Children policy, SHAC uses the WISC model to ensure broad representation. Each year, we review membership and try to ensure representation from each area. We were pleased to have Granville Johnson from the Office of Equity Affairs, Ray Marsh from Counseling and Student Services, and Alice Reese from Facilities join us this year at our SHAC meetings. For the upcoming school year, we would like to encourage representation from employee wellness in our SHAC meetings. Next slide, please. The next 2 slides provide the framework for our annual report as directly taken from Board Policy 6140, the Wake County Student Wellness Policy, which can be found in its entirety in Appendix A. It states a local SHAC is to be established and maintained, and this council has an important charge to assess the students and employee needs along with the school environment, including policies and regulations, to help raise awareness about school health and wellness within Wake County. Next slide, please. The council is to be comprised of representatives of the school system, health department, and community organizations, and shall provide periodic updates to the board, which is why I'm here this evening. Next slide, please. Throughout the 2021 and 2022 school year, we heard from a variety of speakers on a variety of topics, including tobacco prevention and control, staff wellness, safety and security, child nutrition services, mental health, safe routes to school, and physical environment. And I will go through the commendations and recommendations for these topics on the upcoming slides. Next slide, please. Our first topic was tobacco prevention and control. Under the commendations, the district was the first school system in North Carolina to file a lawsuit against Juul. The next commendation is around the 3rd annual Youth Tobacco Forum, which was held on April 28th. WCPSS continues to support student advocates to lead a healthy tobacco-free life and to advocate for a healthier community, including furthering tobacco-free policy. Approximately 50 people participated in the Wake County Tobacco-Free Community Forum, including municipal and county leaders, parents, and students, to learn about how to promote tobacco-free life within school, at home, and in the community. Our final commendation is around the consistent participation in the Youth Tobacco Survey, also known as YTS. The district's participation in the survey continues to allow for better and more accurate data to be collected concerning the current youth tobacco use in North Carolina, while we continue to address the youth vaping epidemic, which is a continued public health crisis. Under recommendations, we would like to see updates from the North Carolina Tobacco Prevention and Control Branch guiding the WCPSS efforts for student health. Examples might include addressing tobacco and vaping use at the school level, since we're hearing from a lot of parents that this continues to be an issue, along with promoting evidence-based vaping cessation and tobacco use treatment resources for students who are caught with a tobacco product on campus and/or struggling with their tobacco use. Next slide, please. The next topic that we discussed or brought up was staff wellness. Staff wellness has been an area identified over the years, and the pandemic has certainly highlighted a great need in this area. Our recommendation is to create a WCPSS staff wellness task force responsible for identifying key stakeholders and staff needs based upon the CDC wellness design, specifically in the areas of preventative services, chronic disease management, safety and injury prevention, physical activity, nutrition, and social and emotional health and stress. Next slide, please. We also received an update from the safety and security team, and we'd like to first commend the use of the third-party evaluators to provide an unbiased review of safety and security in the WCPSS schools. And under recommendations, the SHAC would like to see a continued review of these third-party evaluation results to prioritize safety and security needs within the district. We also encourage a review of safety and security signage at the schools. And finally, the use of one system for school visitor sign-in to provide school visitor screening and background checks for all volunteers in school. Next slide, please. In January, we heard from Child Nutrition Services. We continue to be grateful to all of the child nutrition staff for their adaptation and navigation during the pandemic to feed our students. We also commend CNS for the adoption of new meal charge policy, which allows families to charge up to a new limit so that students may receive the meal of their choice. Under the recommendations, we advocate that the district encourage families to apply for free and reduced price meal benefits, as school breakfasts and lunches will no longer be at no cost for all students. There are many elementary school families who entered the district during the pandemic and may have not participated in the process to obtain these benefits. Our second recommendation will come up as part of the triennial assessment, which I will talk about further at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. We also spoke with counseling and student services, and we commend the video presentations on resilience and stress management that are available on the district's website, along with seminars and workshops that have been offered to parents and the community. Additionally, we commend CAS for the launch of a pilot program in 16 schools offering collaborative mental health services. We were pleased to learn that third-party evaluation is part of this pilot program. And finally, we appreciate that the practices are in place to offer services regardless of the ability to pay. And also are pleased that the virtual option that was started during the pandemic has continued to offer services as an option. Under recommendations, we would like to see the pilot program school expanded based upon the third-party evaluation results, and would like to see improved collaboration with Wake County Health and Human Services. Next slide. Our next discussion was around grounds and environment, and we commend the addition of a facility site planner position. And under recommendations would be to expand the R&D of middle and high school guidelines for outdoor spaces beyond athletics, to increase maintenance budget and life cycle budgets to plan for upkeep, replacement, and maintenance of play equipment, turf fields, and outdoor learning spaces. And finally, the prioritization of programmed play requirements in the design and planning process. The final topic, thank you, that I wanted to address is the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And although this was not something that we reviewed this year, the data is collected and distributed every other year, and we would like to reiterate the importance of collecting a large data sample in Wake County for the survey. The North Carolina Healthy Active Children policy was updated to include the request of obtaining this data at the LEA level in January of 2021. Which brings me to the final topic, which is our triennial assessment. This is the first time that the SHAC is bringing the information to the board on the triennial assessment, as the first cycle has concluded. The results in their entirety can be found in Appendix C, and I just will highlight what the triennial assessment covers, as well as 2 key points. So first of all, the policy states that LEAs must conduct an assessment of their wellness policy every 3 years at a minimum, and that is to determine the following. First, the compliance with the wellness policy, how the wellness policy compares to other model wellness policies, and progress made in attaining the goals of the wellness policy. So the first key item is around the YRBS that I just mentioned, and the fact that that has been we'd like to see inclusion of this item could help us align better with that model policy by obtaining that at the local level. And second, during the review of the progress, there were 2 items that we noted that we did not have metrics and data for that were included in policy 6140. These 2 items specifically are that food will not be used in schools as a reward and punishment, and the second was that, as appropriate, the goals of the wellness policy will be considered in planning all school-based activities. So the SHAC is recommending measurement and education during the next triennial cycle for these items. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all you do as a member of SHAC and leading this team. We always appreciate these updates and your results. Are there any questions or comments from board members? Ms. Kushner?
Thank you. I just wanted to thank you, Ms. Zerda, for underscoring the work around counseling and student services. Thank you for giving commendation to the staff that's worked so hard in this very difficult year. So I just wanted to make sure that I appreciate that was getting included. Thank you.
Ms. Cash?
Yeah, I watch, I don't get to all the meetings because some of them during the same time we meet here, but I know how much you work and how hard it is, how many things you put together at a time, and how many, especially the tobacco seminar piece is really well attended by students, and that makes a big impact here in the community. So thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson-Hostler?
I echo my colleagues' sentiments for my gratitude for the work that you and the entire committee does, in addition to all the other work that you all do. So that is no small feat, the commitment that you all have to Wake County Public Schools. I certainly want to thank you all for including staff wellness, especially during COVID. I think I must have drove that home 1,000 times. And I think schools in general have not traditionally considered this a part of our health and wellness. And so thank you all for acknowledging that. And hopefully we'll continue to provide recommendations to us as a board of what that looks like and how we meet those needs to ensure our teachers are well cared for as well. And I certainly echo the comments around tobacco and vaping. 2017 was the first group of students who brought it to my attention. And so we've come leaps and bounds since then, and quite frankly, we still have far to go. But thank you all for the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have many incredible community partners in Wake County, and SHAC is one of them. And up next is another, and it is an update from our friends at Wake Technical Community College. We have Dr. Scott Rawls and Ms. Jamie Thomas, who's one of their board members, or they're one of their trustees, and we're excited to hear from y'all. So welcome.
All right. Apologize for my voice. I've been speaking a lot in the last few days, but thanks for your kind invitation to the Wake County Board of Education. It's my first board meeting, so I'm very pleased to be here. I'm Jamie Thomas, and I am the board chair of Wake Tech Community College. My day job, I'm a general manager at IBM. My teams are responsible for the development, design, and delivery of our most complex systems that run much of the world that you might experience: financial institutions, healthcare, airlines, and many other organizations around the world. We focus on advanced topics like quantum computing, which is much in the news with the federal government, as well as I run cyber operations for IBM. So, a few years ago, I had the opportunity to decide where would I spend my spare time. And I really wanted to serve on a board that I thought would advance education in our community. And so I had a great opportunity to be referred to the board chair of Wake Tech Community College. And thanks to your kind endorsement, because you're my nominating committee, I was placed on that board. I can say that it's truly the most rewarding opportunity of a lifetime to really have the opportunity to affect the lives of so many thousands of our community members. I think that it goes without saying, if you followed Wake Tech Community College, that it is a premier organization. There's nothing that I could think that I could even reference that does. I know you all do a great job, so first of all, thanks for all you're doing for our community. But Wake Tech is truly that ladder that takes many of these students who perhaps did not find their way early on in their careers as academicians, and enables them to have a successful opportunity that really changes their life. And so we experience that every day at Wake Tech. I think that's why myself, the board, all of the trustees that are on the board are there. Likewise, I'd like to point out that in the last few years, you have been a phenomenal partner to us. we've done some very creative things, including the construction of this new early college over in the Morrisville area at our Research Triangle Park campus. The Lilly Technology Center is there, where we'll be able to focus on biotechnology, as you know, and information technology, which is really an important topic to me. And, of course, the establishment of the plans for the new Morrisville High School. Those are just few of the things I think that we've done together with the Board of Education. But once again, it's about enabling students to ultimately have success in our community, however they may define success. And so that's why I'm here. That's why I spend my spare time with Wake Tech Community College. I'd like to invite Dr. Rawls, who I'm sure many of you have met, who's the president of Wake Tech, to give a few comments about our joint plans and some of the things that we've been embarked on in the last few years. Dr. Rawls.
Thank you. Good evening. Wake Tech may be the only college in the United States where when we have cybersecurity issues that get really hairy and tough, we call our board chair for advice. So we're fortunate. But thank you. We're so fortunate to have this partnership with our great friends and partners with Wake County Public Schools. And I thought I'd take a minute to share some highlights of some of the work that's been taking place between us over the past year and beyond, and some of the results that we are achieving together. So if you could pull up the first slide, and I'll have to admit that if you can go to the next slide, this next slide is just blatant bragging. It's not it's not subtle. It's not a humble brag. I will make a connection to Wake County Public Schools to justify it. But one of the things we're very proud of is the ROI, the return on investment for our students. Recently, and let me just point out, this is a challenge for higher ed right now. This is a real challenge for higher ed, and this came out in this study a couple of months ago from Georgetown University. The headline of the study was that at over 30% of America's colleges and universities, more than 50% of the graduates of those universities and colleges would have been better off 10 years later having never gone to those colleges or universities, because too often students find that, graduates find that, what they're earning 10 years later, sometimes 20 years later, is less than what they paid in tuition and fees 10 years before. And so when you add it all up, the ROI becomes difficult. What we were very proud about is that Wake Tech was ranked among the top 20% of all colleges and universities in the United States in student ROI, and the top 10% for North Carolina. And the connection to Wake County Public Schools, because I had to make a connection to be able to put this up front, is that for this coming year, this ROI will be even off the charts, because we're taking an extra step this year for the graduates of our high schools. This is made possible by the long leaf commitment from the state, but also additional funding that Wake Tech is putting forward to make a guarantee that any graduate of high schools for the past year can go to Wake Tech free of charge, without tuition or fees. And our goal there is, in a time of inflation and a time when too often students and families find the challenge of higher ed and the cost of higher ed, we don't want anyone to have a reason or excuse not to pursue higher ed. And we think Wake Tech's a great opportunity for many students, so many who turn to us, and we don't want anyone to not take advantage of that. And this year we're able to make that offer. So that was my connection to that brag. Now, if you could go to the next slide, I'm going to share with you just a few highlights, and these comes from our strategic plan. And I have to give some kudos to our chair and your nominee, Jamie Thomas, because Jamie was the chair of the committee, our strategic planning and success committee, that put together the strategic plan, that led the strategic plan charge in 2021. And we're in our second year, and in many of the cases, a lot of our goals are with you, our partners, and the goals we hope to accomplish together. And I wanted to share with you just some initial results and some opportunities that are emerging through this, just in three areas. We call our strategic plan Reach and Rally. It is a Wake Tech term that you hear a lot now, Reach and Rally. If you go to the next slide, it's based on a vision statement that our board passed when Jamie was chair of this committee. And the statement is this: it is actually a takeoff of the longtime North Carolina Community College system mission to take students where they are and carry them as far as they can go. What that means for us is we take as much pride in our inclusivity as some take in their exclusivity. We're a place where everybody can go, and we want everyone to succeed. What we tweaked a little bit at Wake Tech were those words take and carry. And you see the adjustment is more around reach and rally. So what we say is we want to reach students in every area of Wake County. We can't just wait for them to get to us. We have to reach out to them, and we rally around them to go as far as their dreams, talents, and resilience will take them. Now, that subtle term rally is really a philosophy for us because we don't, as you know, you see this in the graduations you just experienced, we don't carry anyone across a stage, but when we rally around the students, when we give them the support, the resources that they need, and the empowerment, they really propel themselves across those graduation stages. So our goal is to reach and rally, and that's what our strategic plan is about. In many of our strategies and tactics, they are closely tied to you. And so we wanted to update you on 3 of those right now. The first is in terms of career and college promise. So our strategy with respect to career and college promise is to increase the opportunities. Career and college promise being the free dual enrollment, the free college courses that are available to all Wake County high school students. The reason for the goal, and let me just state the goal, you may have seen this before, is to increase the percentage and diversity of high school students in Wake County participating in career and college promise programs to the North Carolina urban average in accordance with My Future NC recommendations. My Future NC made 3 when they did their county summaries, one of which is that suggested that we should strive to increase career and college promise. We were about 1/3 of the urban average for North Carolina, and the urban average is much lower than other parts of North Carolina. So we've kind of been behind in those opportunities, not for any fault of anyone. Some of those have been challenges of our own capacity in previous years, but we've made this a deliberate goal because we know that more we can reach into the public schools and the high schools and provide these opportunities, that gives students a strong start, and we want to increase those opportunities. Also to increase opportunities for students who are not taking advantage of those opportunities as much. So part of that, our tactics to partner with the Title I high schools, and so now we have a full-time advisor who goes back and forth between Knightdale and East Wake, and we want to do the same in the future at Southeast Garner and at Southeast Raleigh, and to partner with very closely, and we have formal MOUs with partner organizations to reach out to more students in opportunities, communities and schools, Juntos, for which we will have a new grant this year that we work in partnership with you on, and the North Carolina Society of Hispanic Professionals. Now, here's some early numbers, and these are not numbers to go out and say, hey, this is we've solved the problems, because these numbers are way too early. Our data scientists say these numbers are going to go down, but even if they go down, which we expect over the next couple of weeks, these are really significant numbers for us. So if you look at enrollment registration by Wake County students in Career and College Promise for next year, we're already 60% ahead of where we were this time last year, 43% in terms of FTE. So many more students taking advantage, and more students and students taking more courses as well. So we think, while we know this number will go down, even if it goes down significantly, it's still a very significant achievement, and we're heading on the right track in what we think is an important strategy for us to move forward. Moving forward on that strategy, if you'll go to the next slide, we're very proud of what we're doing in partnership with you starting next fall with the Wake Early College of Information and Biotechnologies on our RTP campus. And so that is an exciting endeavor for both of us, for all of us, and we're so excited to have Wake County Public Schools on our RTP campus. And the next slide, too, just to share with you, the more we grow in locations, the more we look to grow with Wake County Public Schools. So you can't see it here, but we're at number 5, which is on the western part of the county. But what we're developing and building on the eastern part of the county, the part of the county that is growing faster than any other region in our county, but also home to now the 2 fastest growing municipalities in North Carolina are in eastern Wake County. So we're very excited about the continued work, if you go to the next slide, of our new East Wake, our new eastern, what we call 4.0 campus, our engineering hub campus, working a lot with our university partners on this, but so excited that it's right across the way from East Wake High and right down just a few miles from Knightdale. So more to come with that, and we're excited about what those opportunities mean for us. Last 2 areas I'll mention to you. One of those starts this week. It's a carry-on of a pilot we started last year. And it was to further these goals, our Reach and Rally goals, and I'll just read our goal from our strategic plan: to implement a summer bridge program that helps students gain early momentum at Wake Tech through early engagement and the completion of transition courses. Those mean those gatekeeper early first-year math and English courses needed to, or the transition courses prior to that, to enter into college-level math and English. Some of you may be aware, years ago we had this challenge in North Carolina and all across education about developmental education, when some would talk about remediation. What we would do in North Carolina was the same as every other place across the U.S. Students would go through public schools, be tested, then they come to us and we test them with other tests, and then we put about 60% back into developmental education, into high school courses. And the big challenge for us at that time is we never calibrated our measuring sticks. We were using different tests, and that was not uncommon. But we stepped up to that collectively, the public schools and the community colleges. Now we use grade point average as a major way of making that determination. Concurrent opportunities so students can move into math and English. But for those students who fall lower in their grade point average at graduation, we're reaching out to them, and in the summer offering this Eagle Bridge program. So we'll have about 100 students with us starting Thursday. They'll be able to take those pre-math, pre-English, as well as the college success course. And once they complete, we'll let them keep the laptop they're going to use this summer. And our goal is they'll roll right into fall semester starting in college level math and English. And we know when they do that, we know they're much more likely to graduate and be successful. So we want that to grow and to keep moving. And then the last area, and Chair Thomas mentioned our term ladders. We call ourselves our region's ladder college. Our goal is, you don't just have to move here for opportunity, but you can move up here. And we do that in connection with our great partners at Wake County Public Schools. For us, there are 5 primary rungs to the ladder. What that means for us is not just about putting programs out there, but it's about connecting the rungs of the ladder, the steps to the ladder. What that means for many adults is taking non-degree programs for certification and carrying that in credit into our degree programs. It means for our high school students, dual enrollment, whether that's early college or our career and college promise pathways and moving forward. It's an increased emphasis on apprenticeship. Our apprenticeship numbers have tripled in the last 2 years, and we're now close to almost 70 companies working with us as apprenticeship companies, and that's a glue that keeps students together. And then it's our partner, it's stackable in terms of what our degrees are, and so that they lead to, in many cases, certifications at the same time. And then the 5th rung, the primary rung, is the opportunity to transfer to a university, even when you're in our very practical applied programs. And so every program having strategic university transfer partners that creates that seamless partnership. I want to leave you with one example, because I think this says something about education in Wake County and education in North Carolina that too often gets missed. So if you'll just go to the last slide. And this is an example of biopharma. Now, biopharma is nothing new to what we all know here in Wake County. And this past couple of years, we've seen growth in biopharma like we've never seen before. Our largest announcement in our state's history is in Holly Springs, Fujifilm Diosynth. They're also doing an expansion in Morrisville. Another big announcement in Amgen, and then Securus just announced just 2 weeks ago. Biopharma is ballooning. Now, to have biopharma, there is no better place, biopharma opportunity, there's no better place in Wake County because of these connections. You can go to Vernon Malone High School and start in our biopharma program at Vernon Malone. Next year, you'll be able to go to the early college on our RTP campus and start in biotech. You can then do the programs in that new advanced facility on that campus, but then we're building a new biopharma facility as part of our new Eastern campus. And then you can stay even local and transfer to university. Of course, we have our great partnerships with NC State, but now East Carolina University is co-located and will be co-located on that Eastern campus, because you can transfer a very practical applied biopharma degree to ECU. And then We share a partnership with NC State University where our advanced training center, the most sophisticated teaching factory for biopharma in the United States, is on the campus of NC State, and we have one floor of that, and NC State is on the second floor. So what I just want to point out is you could never find another place in the United States, and I think, worldwide. I'll talk to representatives from Japan on Thursday about this. I'll talk to folks in Greece about this next week. I won't go to Greece. I'll do that online. But the point is, where can you find a place where you have these kind of advanced technology opportunities, where you have high schools on community college campuses, community colleges on university campuses, and it all becomes seamless in something like biopharma, biotech? That's something that's really unique to this state and to this county. And a lot of times we spend a lot of time, wringing our hands about what we're not doing, and we're not, none of us are perfect. But we also have to celebrate what is possible here, and this is uniquely possible because of the investments and foresight of leadership that came before us and the momentum that we keep going together. So thank you very much for our great partnership between Wake Tech and Wake County Public Schools. It is special to us, and it is a vital part of the ladder that we talk about and trying to play a part of in providing for the residents of Wake County. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rawls, and thank you, Ms. Thomas. I think, Dr. Rawls, you almost said our current motto, which is "From here, anything is possible." But I think that just goes to show the seamlessness of these partnerships, and we thank you for everything that you do at Wake Tech, and we will be voting on renewing Ms. Thomas's appointment to the Wake Tech Board later on our action item agenda, and we are grateful for you being here today. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting us. Thank you.
Next up is our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Ms. Kushner.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions? Ms. Kushner.
Thank you, Chairman Haffey. And I do recognize that there's, and I think I'd sent this message to Chairman Haffey, there are a lot of items on this consent agenda. It is the time of year where we do approve a lot of these bids and look over contracts for the coming school year. So it is that time of year, but I wanted Superintendent Moore to give the board an overview of how these are vetted from staff. I don't know if Mr. Winters is still on.
He's there.
He's here. But if someone can explain to the board how you all work through all of these bids, how you work through contract renewals, just so that we can have that context.
I'm happy to just provide sort of a general overview of why it is that you're seeing so many of them, and then I may invite Mark to speak to any specifics on the process in particular. Many of these are actually contract renewals of contracts that have been in place over years, and they are in order to continue services effective July 1 to our schools. So you'll see a lot of contracts in particular under maintenance and operations. Obviously, those were the largest ones that include things from HVAC, repairs, installation, and service that's part of life cycle work, to flooring, landscaping, painting, tree removal, all of that sort of stuff that happens at all of our schools. And these are the initial beginning of year contracts in order to, and for, like I said, most of them are to continue contracts that have already been in existence prior. I'm trying to think of if there were any that were, a couple of them have things like, some of them are amendments to contracts for some work that's already happened in FD&C. The vast majority of them are contract services. Our EC transportation vendors that transport our students with special needs, homeless, McKinney-Vento identified students, all of those that are that we are required to transport, that special transportation is on here. There's some food for beef products and cafeteria things, all of the contracts that we need to start the school year. Technology is mostly about support to our Oracle and other programs and support services that we already have in place, and continuing the contracts for services in those areas. In academic advancement, you have a few theirs. The first two are you're familiar with. Project Enlightenment is the Wake County Parent Consultants Program. Communities and Schools is our graduation coaches that we have in our middle school programs. And then several of the ones that you see beyond that are nursing services or other specialized day services for our highest needs students that require that. And then there's a couple of the PCG contracts are the people that we do our Medicaid administrative claiming with and reimbursements and that sort of thing that help us with that paperwork. So a lot of them are those. You've got some under Chief of Staff that are the SRO contracts that you heard about earlier with our folks. And just as clarification, those include dollars that are both state dollars for the program as well as some local dollars for the program. So there's a combination in the total there. So those are the kinds of things that you're seeing in front of you, and it is a lot because this is our last board meeting prior to July 1, and happy to have Mark fill in any holes that I left or answer any questions that we may have.
Thank you.
Ms. Scott?
Thank you. I kept turning off my microphone there. Sorry. Thank you for clarifying that and for clarifying why there were so many. And I did just also want to add that the agenda is usually live on Friday evenings where the consent items, everything is for the public to view as well as board members. And that's sort of part of our expectations as board members is that we do review every single thing that we are about to vote on prior to the meetings. And so the public has access to those as well as board members.
I will also say one last thing, and that is that sometimes we have grouped them and had multiple contracts under one précis, but for the sake of transparency and putting every single one out there so that everyone can see them, we did over 100. So.
Well, thank you. I know that's a large lift. Are there any questions or comments?
And I think it's, because I do remember the bundling, that we used to have a bundling of especially the special education-related services. So I think it's very helpful to break them out, even though it makes that list look very long. Thank you.
Yeah, I will say for any new contract, usually in the spring, we go through a bid process, depending on what the service is. But for a lot of these contracts, we go through a bid process in the spring. We have a team that selects the vendor. Then we go through a routing process. All of our contracts go through a routing process that it comes from the department. It goes through depending on the amount of money, and assistant superintendent, area superintendent, through a chief. It goes across my desk. I see every contract that comes through. Anything over $100,000 goes through David Nieder as chief business officer. We have fiscal administrators who review the contracts. We have a process where you have to have a purchase order before we do the contract, so you can show the funds are encumbered. It's a multi-step process to make sure that the money is there to support the contract, that the vendor was selected, that the terms are correct. It's reviewed in detail by staff. So the last couple of months of the year is pretty heavy contract review for our school system.
Thank you, Mr. Winters, and thank you for highlighting that work, and even though it's on the consent agenda, certainly want folks to know all of the things that we have to review starting that Friday evening, and lots of questions for staff in the meantime. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, nay? All right, consent agenda passes. We now move on to action items, and the first one is approval of an interim budget resolution for 2022-2023. I believe Mr. Nieder will be coming up. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, and good evening, Chair Mahaffey, members of the board, and Superintendent Moore. At their board meeting on June 6th, the Board of County Commissioners approved their 2022-23 budget. The Board of Education's proposed budget requested an increase in county appropriation of approximately $56 million. The final budget approved by the commissioners included an increase, a very significant increase of $50 million in the school system's appropriation. That said, and that's 90%, about 90% of what was requested, but that said, we still do have about a $6 million gap to reconcile. Also, as we shared with you at your Finance Committee meeting 2 weeks ago, and still today, we're still waiting on the state legislature to finalize any changes to the second year of their biennial budget. And so nothing new is at least publicly developed since your Finance Committee. And as we shared 2 weeks ago, it's possible that legislative decisions about adjustments to the second year of the biennial budget may increase that funding gap that we've got to reconcile. Once the final legislative decisions are made about next year's budget, we will be in a position to bring back recommendations to you on how to reconcile any gap between planned revenues and planned expenditures. But as this is your last scheduled board meeting prior to the end of the fiscal year, we're asking the board to adopt an interim budget for 2022-23 tonight. The interim budget allows the system to continue to pay, I'm a quote from statute, salaries and ordinary expenses effective July 1, and then allows us to subsequently come back to the board with thoughtful and aligned recommendations for adjusting the budget to align revenues with expenditures. So that said, I'll now ask for your consideration, the board's consideration of approving an interim budget resolution for 2022-2023.
Do we have a motion?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve an interim budget resolution for the ability to pay for our fiscal responsibilities.
Well, thank you, Finance Chair Cash. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any questions, comments, or discussion? Okay. Mr. Nieder, we talked a lot about compensation in our budget. What is the starting salary for our lowest paid full-time employee under this interim budget?
It will continue at the $15 an hour rate that the board approved that became effective in January. But let me add to that, that once the budget, the board's 22-23 budget is reconciled, whatever compensation changes are included within that budget will go into salary schedules that we'll bring back to the board for approval, but then they'll be paid retroactively back to July 1st. So even though the decisions may not be made until well into the year, although I hope this coming year is a very different situation than we had where we went to December, but employees would be paid retroactively to make them whole as if they were getting paid that rate starting July 1.
Okay, so we have approved our budget, the county has approved their budget. We're just waiting for the second part of the biennium budget in order to reconcile our budget, in order to do that.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you for that. As good of a timeline as we can get with the General Assembly. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Thank you. We move on to a next action item under finance, which is general counsel. This was asked in executive to get pulled to action so that we could vote on it, and it is our contract with our legal services provided by Tharrington Smith. Mr. Nieder.
Yes, thank you. Again, this next item on your agenda is to request your consideration of approval of the Board of Education's general counsel contract with Tharrington Smith for the 22-23 fiscal year. The contract provides hourly rates significantly below market value. Those rates include partner at $225 an hour, which was the same as in the prior fiscal year, associate at $210 an hour, again, no change, and paralegal at $125 an hour, and again, no change in that rate. Funds have been secured and as Mr. Winter said, encumbered, and a purchase order stands behind it such that we can enter into this contract. And I now ask the board's consideration of approval.
Okay. Let's get a motion in a second before any discussion, questions, or comments.
Chairman Happy, I move approval of the Board of Education General Counsel contract for fiscal year 22-23.
Thank you, Ms. Kushner and Mr. Haggerty. Questions, comments, concerns, discussion? Yes, sir.
Thank you. You know, this is a long and historic partnership we do have with Tharrington Smith, and Tharrington Smith does continue to provide their services at a very discounted rate compared to comparable legal services in our community and in other communities around the state that I've looked at. The one thing that I would ask, I am happy to second this and to vote to approve the contract. I would like to ask, though, that in the future going forward, that maybe the board be given more of an opportunity to maybe have a work session or something where we can hear sort of like an annual report from Tharrington about the scope of their representation, give an opportunity for more feedback back and forth to really understand the scope of all the services that are provided.
No pressure, Jonathan.
I'd be delighted to do that.
All right. Ms. Carter.
Thank you. And I guess for me, I was just curious do you know when the last time a bid was put out, like RFP was put out for this service to open this up for bids?
Off the top of my head, Ms. Carter, I do not. We would have to go back, but we could check.
Okay. And that would just be something I, as one board member, would appreciate just to know if there is anything out there. I know you've looked at what is happening in other districts, but just to see, so that's the only thing.
Ms. Cash?
I have no concerns about the services from Tharrington. However, I think in all, the transparency of this board, sometimes I think that we do need more discussion over this, and I don't know how this compares with in-house counsel being hired and how this compares with other services in the school system. So I think in all fairness to the Board of Education in the future, I think it would be a good transparency effort to the public because this comes up to us on a regular basis. So I would ask for a little more help on that from the Finance Department.
Any further comments, questions? Ms. Kushner?
Thank you. I think it was helpful to see the attachment with the 21 attorneys that we do work with, and I think if we employed 21 attorneys, the price tag would be far greater. I think we would not get the depth of expertise that some of these attorneys from Tharrington provide along special education issues with IEPs, with the real estate. I think some of our, we should bundle any discussion with some of the ancillary legal, the other attorneys that we contract with. I think that should be part of that bigger discussion. But I think as far as this contract, I look at the county that has a lot of in-house, and I think we're getting far more bang with the buck contracting. Our core business is education, teaching and learning, and I think it's wise of us to have this contract the way we have it structured, so we get the depth of legal expertise and the variety that they offer. So that's just my 2 cents.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Kushner. Ms. Johnson-Hostler.
I would echo that. While I was chair, we actually explored what it would cost us to move into in-house attorneys and begin to have the conversation. And I think ultimately one of the things that we haven't done well is actually ensure that the public understands the depth and breadth of service that we get. It is easy, especially I could say from someone before coming on the board, it just appears that Mr. Bloomberg is here on Tuesday nights. And if you don't sit at this board table, then it's really difficult to understand the level of work and especially his accessibility to the chair. So I do think it's important that people as you said, see the number of attorneys that we have access to, which gives you some level of idea and scope of the work that we do get from Tharrington Smith. So I do believe that that could be helpful for public perception, and quite frankly, also a reminder to those of us sitting at this table, the level of work, and every time we see an attorney for a multitude of issues, that we don't have to then go find somebody that's a specific expert on a particular topic, because we do have access to the firm. So thank you for lifting that up.
Thank you so much. Seeing no further hands, all in favor, please signify with a vote of aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next action item is to appoint reappoint Ms. Jamie Thomas to the Wake Tech Board. Chair Thomas was just here with Dr. Rawls. So we have 4 trustees on the Wake Tech Community College Board of Trustees. Terms are for 4 years and staggered, and the term for Ms. Thomas will expire at the end of this month. You will have a profile of Ms. Thomas, as well as a spreadsheet showing current appointees of the board on your Simply board agenda documents. Is there a motion to reappoint Ms. Thomas? Vice Chair Haggerty.
Chair Mahaffey, I would move that we reappoint Jamie Thomas as the Wake County Public School Systems appointee to the Wake Technical Community College Board of Trustees.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Was that you, Ms. Scott?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Any discussion, questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you. So you had a chance to hear a little bit from Chair Thomas tonight, and one of the things that we've tried to do is really reach out and improve our communication with our partners at Wake Tech. We had the chance to meet with Ms. Thomas and other board members of Wake Tech to tour the new Early College of Information and Biotechnology. And I guess one of the things that I'm excited about is that I think we'll have more opportunities as we go for more interaction. Their board really seems to value and appreciate our partnership. And as you heard about with all the exciting work going on in East Wake, for example, I think there'll be opportunities, whether it's as a board committee meeting or just individual visits, to tour some of these facilities, see the work, and learn more about the great partnerships that exist between Wake Tech and our school system. Board members, what do they bring to the table? They bring their experiences, their perspectives, their connections. Ms. Thomas, Chair Thomas, brings a lot of very solid qualifications to this role that we see are very valuable in this position, especially as it relates to information technology and some of the programs that President Rawls highlighted. So again, we all have different ideas, different backgrounds, different perspectives, and I look forward to the opportunity to exchange more of these with the Wake Tech Board going forward. And I, again, urge her reappointment.
All right. Anything else? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right. I will now take a motion to go into closed session.
Give me a minute to wind up. All right. Chair Mahaffey, at this time, I would move that we move into closed session to consider confidential personnel information protected under General Statute 143, 318.11 A1, A3, and A6, and Thomas versus WCPSS IC number 14-509172. Further, to consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privileges provided for under General Statute 143, 318.11, and to consider confidential student information protected under North Carolina General Statute 1115C402 and the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, 20 United States Code 1232G.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, concerns, or discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Okay, we are now in closed session. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's very nice to meet you. Thank you for all the things you said out there. Thank you. And you probably need to get coffee. Yeah. Because I think what? Do you have good plans? Yes. Okay. Yes. We'd like to get coffee. Absolutely. You're in good life. I'm sorry. Oh, you made those? Yeah. You do resin work? I do. Hi, I'm Sarah. I thought you were. I am.